Greetings and salutations, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. I am Charles, coming to you today with another episode of World End Economica. Last time round, we made it through a couple days of stock trading, and we've brought in a new player. The owner of the Big Bull Cafe, where we haven't been to since the beginning of this story, before we got chased out by cops. Turns out the owner is a programmer, and a programmer is exactly what we need because Hal can't do it, Hagana can't do it, and Lisa can't do it. But they need programming skills in order to pull off Hagana's mathematical prowess, and hopefully they can somehow find a way to tie in Hal's sentiment and gut feelings. Let's dive right in and see just where things go from here. I feel like things are picking up a little bit in regards to the stock challenge, so let's see how many days worth we get through. When we returned to the church, Lisa had come back and was making dinner.
Welcome home. Did you see Serrault?
Yeah.
You did. That's good. This is the time to depend on your connections.
After speaking, Lisa quickly turned back to the kitchen, but as I looked at her from behind, I recalled that exchange with Serrault. Lap pillow. It wasn't that I absolutely wanted to try it, but I wasn't totally uninterested. When the thought occurred, without knowing it, I was staring. When I noticed Hagana was giving me a curious look, I looked away quickly and went to my room. Lap pillow. How was it? Moving my pillow, I tried a few things. Really? We're going down this route? Can we get back to the moon economy? And then, getting fed up with how stupid I was acting, I fell flat on the bed. The next day, there was some movement with that suspicious stock I bought into. The trigger seemed to be that someone went and bought a big order. Right after, trading in the stock seemed to freeze for a moment. It was like seeing the exact moment the tides turned. The stock that had been hanging around 270 mools rocketed skywards. I immediately placed what were called market orders. Not orders specifying the price like buy 1,000 shares at 270 mools, but rather to buy at whatever the going price was at market. I placed the order using up even the entire 5 million mools I had promised Hagana. Oh no, this is not going to end well. The margin sellers were piled up over 30 times the daily volume, and seemed about to explode at any moment. That was what a horde of sharp-eyed traders like me flooded in on. At the beginning, there were a number of large sell orders, putting up resistance, and the scent of blood from the chance of a short squeeze drew an even bigger crowd. There was a rush of orders, and a lag between the situation of the stock on the screen and the real situation started showing up. For moments, the movements would stop, and then the price would suddenly jump 4 to 5 mools. They weren't able to keep up server side. In the real-world markets, if this happened, it would be a one-sided climb afterwards. The guys who sold short and lost would have to buy to cut their losses, and that'd cause other short sellers to close their balances. In a mere 10 minutes, I was up 290 mools. The daily movement limit for this stock was 354 mools. It had started out at 270 mools on the dot, so it was at plus 30% off of that. Depending on the country, price movement limits might not exist. even within an exchange. The levels that the limits were set varied among stocks. The price on the screen kept climbing, and in moments 300 was in sight. At 300, there was a glut of sell orders waiting. One thing you learn from trading is that even though there's no rational reason for it, there's always huge orders waiting at round multiples of 10 or 100. It was a psychological turning point. If it broke through 300, there'd be no bigger break point to speak of. If the sellers were to put up resistance, this was it. There were 46,000 shares of buy orders versus 128,000 shares of sells. Sellers were bigger by 3 to 1, but I still didn't think it would stop. Uh-oh. At that moment, I opened up an order to buy on margin. Here it is. This was the first time something spoke to me telling me this was the moment. Maybe it was because I glanced at the wall of sell orders, but I took a short breath before resuming trading. There, I thrust in 10 million mools, the limit for buying on margin. I could make the excuse with Hagana that I hadn't promised not to use margin. Plus, if it profited, she wouldn't find out. In any case, in that moment, my order of a bit under 40,000 shares was blazing a trail. After that, it was like a fountain spraying. Whether that was the sweet wine of victory or a spray of blood depended on where you were standing. Holding back the urge to jump up from my chair and shout, I put in a sell order the instant my order went through. The set price was 349 mools, 5 under the price limit of 354 mools. I didn't put it at 354 mools because if it went there and there weren't enough buyers, the trade wouldn't close before the market did. In that case, there would be a chance that the demons in the last 10 minutes might kill me. I didn't put it at 350 mools because it was a round number. Right now, the stock was hitting new highs, so except for people who were caught with short sales, everyone else was taking their profits. If everyone was aiming to take their profits, then 350 mools, that nice round psychological point, would be the place where everyone would want to sell. That's why I put in an order just before that, 349 mools. Like an old anime spaceship's throttle, the price of the stock on the screen rushed forward. There's no feeling like watching your position get larger with every breath. That feeling of omnipotence at having made the right decision. That feeling of superiority at having beat out other people. And then, 27 minutes before the end of the morning session, the deal closed at 349 mool. Profit, a bit over 3.6 million mools. That feeling of your head tingling and your hair standing on end. This was it. That feeling I had long forgotten. I was so happy I couldn't speak, so I took a deep breath. Looking at the rush of buy orders flooding in when the stock hit the daily high limit, I laughed tiredly. Not feeling bad about it even if it hit the limit again was the ironclad path to victory. Sarcastically, I made sure I didn't forget to tell myself that. Just as I was looking at the screen, unable to contain my smile, Hagana came into the living room from the hall. She had a suspicious look that said, "There's a wacko here," but I didn't care. If she had come a bit closer, I might have run over and hugged her. I might get to the point where we definitely win before you start to catch up with your math, I said to Hagana as she went to the bathroom. As she put her hand on the doorknob, she turned around slightly.
But you'll give Lisa 50,000 mools from the prize money, right?
Yeah.
Then that works too.
Hagana said that and headed to the bathroom. I thought she'd be a bit more competitive and annoyed at my success, but she didn't seem that way at all. I was a bit disappointed and returned my eyes to the screen.
Oh, did it go that well?
Lisa peered in from the hallway leading to the church. She had a triangle of cloth on her head and a mask on, apparently from cleaning. I turned around and Lisa took her mask off to reveal a knowing smile. Shut up.
Oh, things went well and you want praise. How honest of you.
Lisa was really sharp-eyed. I held my head in front of the computer.
Anyway, I wonder if I should cut things off here.
What were you doing all morning?
Big house cleaning.
It's that time of year.
Nope. But this is about all I can do after all.
What? When I asked her out of confusion, Lisa took the cloth from her head and took off her gloves. She then threw them behind her and came into the living room in relief.
I can't be any direct help to either you or Hagana. In that case, I can be of use keeping this place clean. Just being in a clean place can give power.
I don't really get it, but... I said as I turned back to the screen. It's better than it being dirty.
Right? And well, besides that, having delicious food and clean clothes... Oh, and Hal, you're always popping your neck and shoulders. Should I give you a massage?
Lisa wiggled her long, thin fingers as she spoke. For some reason, she was hunched over like a witch trying to scare children. What was she up to? I don't need that.
Oh, getting a massage from a young woman like me isn't something that happens every day, you know.
You shouldn't be the one saying that. Lisa laughed theatrically and went to the sink. As I watched her back, I thought in my heart, if it were a lap pillow. And then I sighed. You are really fixated on that now. The next day, there wasn't anything particularly of note. I was still profiting at a good pace, and in the end I managed to move the amount I could control to 10 million mools by the end of the week. Essentially, I earned more than 5 million mools. By doubling in a week, if that kept happening, I'd be able to gather the entire wealth of humanity. But that definitely wasn't going to continue. Still, I had managed a pretty hefty return with 5 million mools. The volatility of the market was big, so just by using that, the profits had been large. Mr. Troche had slowed down in the last half of the week, and after a reversal, he had settled at 47.8 million mools. The distant second place, with 31 million mools, had already stopped trading. At this rate, getting second was definitely realistic. If I could get into second place, that 50,000 mools would go straight to Lisa, and I'd be headhunted by Schrödinger Street and leave this place. Giving something back to the place that took care of me before moving on to bigger things, that didn't sound bad. Jokes aside, it might be possible to get there without Hagana. I thought that, but it was obvious that if I started treating Hagana like dead weight, it'd cause trouble. Lisa probably wouldn't like that, and Hagana was holed up in her room doing whatever she does, going back and forth with that afroed Serrault. Apparently she had already received the program. And so, Sunday, the day of rest for us warriors, came. I was staring into space while eating breakfast, and while the laptop was at least on, I was so out of it that Lisa was laughing. Hagana had finished eating her toast and was drinking her hot milk when she put her cup down and spoke.
I was back testing the programming and...
Huh? That was all I could say to those sudden words. And so?
I don't know whether I'm using it wrong or if the program is wrong. The numbers are insane. We mailed back and forth a lot and still can't figure it out.
Uh-huh. And so... I looked at Hagana and she kept staring at her cup. What's going on? When I hesitated, Lisa, who had been washing things behind Hagana, tried to signal something to me over her shoulder. And then I finally understood. Ah, you want to go to the Big Bull Cafe? Hagana looked up.
Yes.
Then say so. Oh? Hagana's lips formed a thin line. At least remember how to get there. As I said that and was pulling up the map on the laptop, Lisa glared at me from behind Hagana. At the same time, Hagana was, in her own way, looking down at the table with no expression. There was something she wanted to say, but couldn't. Looking between Lisa and Hagana a few times, my dulled wits found their ways to the correct answer. Or, do you want to go together? When I asked, Hagana jumped a little, then looked at me slowly.
Please.
Hagana said that one thing clearly, and Lisa shook her head and went back to washing. When we went to the Big Bull Cafe, Hagana seemed afraid of Serrault's head. But it could just be that she was afraid of Serrault himself. Even if she weren't afraid, she probably wasn't comfortable with unfamiliar people. Hagana was strong-willed, but oddly weak in places. I wouldn't be surprised if outside she was a timid little miss. The sooner the better?
I want to be in time for Monday.
All right. I gulped down my last ham and eggs and shut down the computer. Is that guy even awake at this time? No one had an answer to my muttering. Sunday mornings have a special air about them. On weekdays, the atmosphere of the city was very active, possibly due to the many people working. However, on days off, everything was somehow more relaxed and calm. There were also fewer people in the streets, so the air felt refreshing. As always, along the way I would look at things on the street and wonder what companies they came from. Because of that, once in a while I'd wind up being some distance from Hagana, but this time she didn't complain or glare at me. When I slowed down, she'd stop and look around aimlessly as she waited for me, and then we'd walk off again. While doing this constantly, we came to the Big Bull Cafe. When we entered, we found a large man who totally suited the name of the place leaning on the counter, reading an e-magazine, bored. He glanced our way sharply. Welcome. Hagana completely froze and stood dead center of the automatic door. Is Serrault around? Boss, he's in the far back, room 2. Thanks. The ox-like guy gave a gruff nod and went back to his magazine. I turned around to the still frozen Hagana and motioned for her to move to the back. However, she didn't even move when I started walking off, so I took Hagana's hand and pulled her along. The ox was glancing between us and his magazine, but in the end I got the feeling he was smiling.
Oh. You're not scared?
As I walked through the narrow maze of halls, Hagana spoke. Huh?
He seemed like a bad person.
Bad? Well, he wasn't a banker. Hagana seemed to have trouble coming up with a response to that, but her expression was serious. Just train up your body, then most people won't seem that scary.
How? You've trained?
You didn't see me trash that Toyama guy. Most adults around here I can easily beat.
I see.
Then Hagana nodded. I thought about saying something, but decided not to. I had a feeling that being afraid of big men wasn't just due to a simple difference in strength, but some other reason. Even if she had to come here of all places, she would have come by herself if she were able to. And so I guess number 2 is here. At the far end of the place there were 2 rooms. The number 1 and 2 rooms cost 3 times as much as the other booths. You awake? I knocked on the door. The place was quiet, so I couldn't shout. Despite knocking a few times, there was no answer, so I opened the door gently. There was some kind of movie playing silently on the computer screen. Did he have headphones on and couldn't hear? Immediately, I shut the door.
What happened?
Hagana asked, looking at me. I replied somewhat hurriedly. Can you go over there for a bit?
Why?
Just do it. Hagana didn't look very happy, but she eventually went. Reluctantly, she went back down the hall about 3 steps. Hagana's brows furrowed, but she did go back another 2 steps. I nodded, opened the door, and went in. Yeah, that would be why. Inside the booth, there were silent porn videos playing all over the screen. Hey! I poked at Serrault's head as he slept on the sofa. Soon, Serrault woke up and looked at me sleepily. What? Oh. All he made were mumbled sounds and then he yawned wide. He was a tall guy, so even though he was laying on the sofa, his legs below the knee were sticking out. It would have been better to go home than to sleep in a place like this. When Serrault was yawning, I cut the power to the screens. I'd just seen a girl about Lisa's age in inappropriate attire in front of a deep space background doing inappropriate things. Don't doze off with all your porn on. Oh, not to your taste. That series has pretty lovely girls in it, all naked except for some space gear. Ain't it great? I'm not talking about that. Then what? Oh, you want something like Little Miss Hagana? Well, it's not like it doesn't exist, but you're gonna get arrested, huh? I am seriously going to kill you. I got it. Don't get worked up. I grabbed Serrault's lapel and was squeezing, but Serrault was unfazed. Getting worked up looked stupid, so I let go. Serrault scratched his head and laughed crudely. And what did you want? Jeez. Hagana wants something from you. Huh? She's here? Serrault was surprised and adjusted his clothing quickly. There was so much to fix. He was clutching his hair. She's waiting right outside. I opened the door and there was porn playing. Well, then tell me. She's going to think I'm some kind of creep. Like I care? She's here about how the program wasn't working right. Oh, she said something about that in emails. I'm going to call her in. Yeah, I'm good. Facing a small mirror on the wall, he was turning his face to the left and right and messing with the big mass on his head. When I poked my head out of the room, a bored Hagana looked my way. She clearly seemed relieved, but her eyes were also a bit stern, and she seemed kind of sullen at being left out.
It's okay?
Yeah, the gentleman's done with preparations. Oh, that was him.
I see.
When I pulled back into the booth, Hagana stepped in somewhat hesitantly. It wasn't like she had never seen anything like it before, but it was so different from Lisa's church, it probably made her uneasy. Hey, Miss Hagana. Hagana just nodded at Serrault's greeting. Serrault spun the chair in front of the computer around and smiled, inviting her to sit down. Hagana hesitantly set herself down on it. I heard you had some issues with the program.
Yes. If I'm calculating the time period for the statistics calculations, an error comes up. For example...
As if a switch had flipped in her, Hagana took out her terminal and started explaining. I listened but had no idea what was going on. It sounded like magic spells to me. There didn't seem to be any need for me, and it was cramped with 3 people. So I put my hand on the door and made to leave. Hagana stopped her explanation that instant. Huh? When I turned around, our eyes met. She had on this defenseless face that said, "You're going to leave?" My heart jumped, and I froze. But I didn't want Serrault to notice, so I quietly slumped my shoulders, took my hand off the door reluctantly, and leaned lightly on the desk. Hagana watched worriedly, then resumed her explanation. It all happened in the space of a second. Serrault was frowning at Hagana's questions, so it didn't seem like he noticed. Hagana started conversing with Serrault again. While I watched them, I struggled to calm the beating of my heart. True, this cramped, messy place would be scary to be left alone in, even for a girl like Hagana. But what surprised me was Hagana's defenseless face. I was struck by this strong protective urge, like I was strongly moved to defend her. I had never been relied on by someone this much. While leaning against the table, I thought it didn't feel that bad. That is just such a ridiculous image. I see. Then it's gotta be. Serrault was muttering as Hagana spoke. Huh? You look bored. Serrault spoke suddenly while Hagana was speaking. If you want, you can play games there, and you can connect to the net here. You can use it to kill some time since this'll take a while. It will? Yeah. Since he offered, I went around the table and looked at the stuff scattered there. At the same time, Serrault turned back to Hagana and spoke seriously. Wow, Hagana, you really stimulate my intellectual curiosity. I may look like this, but I like tough problems. Makes it worth doing. I snickered just listening to that from the side.
Really?
Yeah, I was an engineering student, you know. I didn't think that I'd be able to talk math with a girl like you.
I see.
It was obviously flattery, but while Hagana was slightly hesitant and looked downward, she didn't look unhappy about it. No doubt it was fun to have someone to talk with on her favorite subject. Lisa's head hurt just from stocks, so she couldn't do it, and her students were her students and not in the right position for that kind of chatter. So that would mean that Serrault was quite intelligent in his own right. But was that true? The only people who come to this shop are dirty rats like this guy. I'd love it if he came more. Hey, what's with the dirty? Well, it's the truth. Bunch of complaints came in that there's a smell.
Yes, Hal smelled.
Ha, see? Serrault laughed and Hagana agreed. Damn, but if it's the truth, there's no helping it. I gave up on retorting and fled to games. Powering up the display, I went to stick the memory card from the game into the machine and stuck my head under the table. That instant, Serrault jumped up from the sofa, his mouth working silently. Looking at him from under the table, I wondered what the heck he was up to. What's under the table? Then, when Serrault's hand moved past Hagana and made motions at the screen, I remembered that he left porn running.
What's wrong?
Hagana asked Serrault. Serrault looked at her. Hagana twisted and made to turn this way. Game over. That's the face that Serrault had on. At that moment, I forcibly yanked the cables near my hand. Bzzz. With a whine, the computer itself shut down. By the time Hagana turned around, there shouldn't be anything on the screen.
What's going on?
Hagana's eyes went from the screen back to us. Oh, I pulled the wrong plug. Yeah, it's all right. Serrault played along. Really? Yeah, don't worry about it. Hell, thank God. Thank God. While Serrault and I exchanged words, Hagana had tilted her head, exuding question marks the whole time. It ended up being afternoon by the time we left the Big Bull Cafe. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to leave it there. We're out of time. Oh, I'm really glad that we got to bring Serrault back into this show. He's more entertaining than I was expecting. Granted, we really don't need porn on this recording, so thankfully they didn't really show that. And thankfully Hagana did not need to see that or hear it. And hopefully they actually figured out the program some. Like, it seemed like they actually were starting to understand each other, or at least understand each other in the language of programming. So we'll have to find out next time just how this goes. Is the program going to help? Are they going to jump ahead in the competition? Or is it all going to be for naught? We'll find out next time. As always, thank you all for joining me. Feel free to post in the comments what you think about this episode and this plot and these characters so far. Are you enjoying this? Are you having fun? Are you curious? Are they going to win the competition? What do you think of Serrault and his ridiculousness? Is he going to be able to pull through and give us a program we need? Let's talk about it in the comments. And I guess I will see you all next time. Ta-ta, all.